Bali, the God's Island, a place famous for its rich culture and amazing nature. But you are about to see this heaven island hide 10 secrets that it doesn't want you to know. Number 10. The traffic. If you are going there with the idea you can easily move back and forth browsing the beauties of the island, you are wrong. On the streets of every town, there is something like a permanent traffic jam. Thousands of people and 3 times more scooters are crossing the road lanes, riding in forbidden streets, using the sidewalks for a shortcut, and never ever they don't give a turn signal. Something more. In towns like Chicago, for example, there are just no sidewalks at all. You are just walking down the street, always looking around you, hoping someone doesn't hit you with his vehicle. But why is that? The main reason why there are only tight roads with no sidewalks is because they are old. Really, really old. The streets where cars pass by nowadays once appeared to connect rice plantations, and the people were moving on feet or by carts. No one thought that thousands of cars and scooters would flood the road network. And it is impossible to make a road wider because on its ends it is full of houses, temples, and shops. As for traffic, there are just too many people with too many vehicles with no public transport. Yes. There is no public transport anywhere in Bali to relieve the traffic in some way. So, if you have decided to travel to the island of the gods, you have to prepare yourself that 20 kilometers are traveled for at least 30 minutes and sometimes for an hour and a half. Number 9. The dogs. Bali has a serious problem with the stray dogs, but it turns out that they have a serious problem with Bali too. There is no town or a village with at least several dozens of the shaggy 4-legged ones, which at night time take over the streets, bark, howl, and stand out for their territory with tooth and nail. The truth is that Bali always have been known as the island of the dogs, but now there are too many of them. According to research from 2021 on the island, there are around 650,000 of them, and most of them are homeless. That is a reason for more infections and death cases because of diseases such as rabies, and because there is no such thing as state politics to catch and sterilize the stray dogs. It's most likely that they will become more and more. But there is one more problem. In 2017, a scandal broke out because one of the merchants was exposed to changing the chicken meat with dog. If you love the Bali traditional skewers named sakoi, you have to know before years a lot of street food sellers took advantage of the multitude of stray dogs and used them for culinary purposes. It's not hard to convince how hygienic or humanistic is this. So if you are there, make sure to eat only at restaurants, firstly because it is safer, and secondly because the food doesn't bark. Number 8. Prices for tourists. There are 2 types of prices in Bali: the right price and the white price. Most of the relationships between tourists and local people are tied in some kind of deal. Everyone is trying to sell something to you: clothes, souvenirs, Uber services, food, etc. The first thing you need to learn there is to bargain. Not a single store there has prices on its items. It's simple. Everyone is trying to sell you something at the highest possible price. So, you can get something for $100, or you can bargain with the seller and negotiate it for half the price, or even less. Number 7. The TMS. In Bali, it is impossible not to spend millions, rupees, not dollars. In a lot of places you can't pay with a card. So if you aren't prepared with cash, you have to go to a local ATM. And that is not always safe. Scammers are everywhere in the world, and their number is very often equal to the number of tourists. There are a lot of tourists in Bali. On the island, isn't impossible to come across to hacked ATM. Lots of them have attached scanning devices that copy the information on your card, giving thieves access to your bank funds. What you can do to protect yourself: firstly, never use ATMs in crowded neighborhoods or neighborhood shops. Some websites are warning that even in big shops such as Mart or Circle K, the ATMs are not 100% verified. Secondly, always take a look at the ATMs with some traces of modifications. Try to pull the slot for the card and see if it's moving slightly. If yes, this can be an indication to you that maybe it is a fake one put over the real one to scan the information of your card. Thirdly, if possible, use only ATMs in banks. They are 100% verified. If there is no bank near you, just look around and see which ATM are the local people using. They know best which one is safe and what to be aware of. And the best thing you can do is just to change your currency before going to the island. Number 6. Bali Belly. Something almost everyone who has ever wanted to travel to Bali has heard is the so-called Bali belly. Here is what it means and how to protect yourself from it. The risk of getting the Bali belly is very high, especially if you are staying for more time. If this happens, be prepared for pain in the stomach, fatigue, fever, or in the mildest case, a brutal disorder accompanied by vomiting which will last for 2 or 3 days. The reason? You just got some kind of virus or bacteria from the food or the water of Bali. The water from the sink isn't good for drinking, or at least for the tourists, because of the variety of microbes in it, which our organism isn't used to fight with. The Balinese aren't good at filtering their water, and this is the reason why you never shouldn't drink it. But don't worry, at every hotel, there is a giant dispenser with fresh water to drink. Also, you can safely stock yourself with plastic bottles of water from absolutely every shop. Otherwise, you can use the Balian water to shower yourself and wash your hands. And just in case, use fresh water when you brush your teeth. The less tap water that comes into contact with your mouth, the better for you. Also, don't order drinks with ice in it. You can guess why. Number 5. The laws. In Bali and Indonesia generally, the laws are to be obeyed. And if you don't obey them, the result can be even fatal. If you want to visit Bali but you are from the people that are using illegal narcotic substances, do not visit Bali. Indonesia has absolutely zero tolerance for any use of drugs or possession of any weed, powders, pills, and etc. If the police find even minimal amounts of marijuana in you, the minimum punishment you can get is a fine and 3 years in prison, Indonesian prison. And if they find other strong substances, you will be begging for at least 20 years sentence, because the alternatives to this sentence are lifetime prison or death. Yes, the law punishment in Indonesia for narco-trafficking of strong drug substances is death through gunshot. There are cases in which foreign citizens were caught with drug trafficking used to spend 10 years in prison and after that got executed. The Indonesian government doesn't care if this will cause a political scandal or ruin their resume. By the way, when you are checking yourself online for a flight tour from Bali, you are filling out a column in which you are declaring that only you packed up your luggage and no one helped you. This is so you can't make excuses that someone else slipped something in your things. Therefore, do not engage in nonsense and do not carry things that could cost you your life. Number 4. Cruelty. If you love animals, there are places you can visit and places not to. On the island of the gods, everything is exotic and different, and respectively is some kind of attraction, and sadly the animals are not exception. To attract as many as possible tourists, the government is offering several animal activities, but a big part of them are extremely inhumane. Let's start with the positive. If you want to enjoy the Balian fauna, there are a few very good options. The monkey forest in Ubud is a top destination. This is a giant park, home to of thousands long-tailed macaques. They are living in groups in different areas of the forest. The tourists are walking around them and make sure not to annoy them and avoid getting their hand bitten or their phone stolen. The only thing you can do with the monkeys is to feed them or make a unique selfie where the monkey is taking a photo with you. Yes, the monkey is taking the picture, not you. Another ethical entertainment with animals is snorkeling in the ocean. You can see amazing fish, mantis, and turtles in their natural habitat. But if you see an advertisement that says elephant riding or elephant showering, even if it says they are saved ones, you have to be aware that most likely this is a lie. And these animals are trained and tortured very cruelly. In Bali there are lots of them, sadly. Number 3. Crowd. Bali is a tourist heaven, but this is about to end. Before a couple of decades, when Bali gained the fame of an appetizing place for tourists, the vacation there used to be something way different from nowadays. People were going to the island, staying in small lonely hotels, walking around the rice terraces, tasting the local foods and culture, and enjoying the silence and tranquility almost alone. You can do this today as well, but without the silence and tranquility, because everywhere are many, even too many tourists. Bali has with area of 5,780 square kilometers, but it is home to 4.3 million permanent residents. Apart from that, in 2019, the island was visited by 6 million tourists. If you are walking on streets, you will hear more English or Russian languages instead of Indonesian or Balinese language. But the problem is not only that the more tourists coming, the more hotels are needed. To make a place for them, the jungles are getting cut and the rice terraces are getting destroyed, which creates a dangerous phenomenon. The tourists are going there to see the wild nature of Bali. But the more tourists are going to Bali, the less wild nature lasts there. And after a couple of years, the problem can escalate to a point that just there won't be anything to see. No jungle, no animals, no even rice. There will be only empty hotels and poor Balinese. Number 2. Mosquitoes. Maybe in your country, the mosquitoes are just annoying, but in the equatorial places on Earth, they can be very dangerous. The fever called dengue is one of the most common diseases spread by mosquitoes. The symptoms include a horrible headache, high fever, and pain in the joints. In extreme cases, it can be life-threatening. The virus Zika is another problem, especially for pregnant women, as it can cause birth defects in the baby. The symptoms are usually light but not always. They are similar to the symptoms of dengue fever. Even more exotic disease spread from the flying bugs is the chikungunya. The translation of its name means a disease that makes you shrink. The symptoms are pain, fever, spasms, dizziness, and etc. The yellow fever is even worse. It can affect the kidneys and the liver, which gives the eyeballs an eerie yellow color. And of course malaria, although it is not considered a problem in Bali. It still exists in rural areas of Indonesia, but how to protect yourself from it? The most important thing is to be prepared. As soon as you get off the plane, spray yourself with appropriate repellents. At the pharmacy, there are those labeled with the sign tropical, and this is what you need. It's good to buy these from there, because their repellents are prepared for their mosquitoes. Make sure you've closed the doors and windows. And don't spend a lot of time around the rice, because the stagnant water there is heaven for them. Number 1. Garbage. Not just a garbage, but a world one. You won't believe how much garbage is there at this really beautiful place, Bali. A tropical heaven, famous for its amazing beaches and rich culture, is fighting a serious problem with the garbage, which affects its natural beauty and ecosystem. The problem is so that serious even in 2018. The government declared a state of emergency with the garbage and even sent parts of the army to clean the beaches of Sanur. But what is the reason for these huge amounts of garbage? Firstly, as of its insufficient collection and processing. As you remember, the water isn't good for drinking. Everyone is buying plastic bottles with mineral water, drinking it, and throwing it away. The tourists, however, are more than the cleaners. In the end, in order not to be thrown into waste, the Balinese begin to burn them. The ocean flows also take a big part of the problem with garbage. During the monsoon season, they are wasting tons of garbage at famous beaches like Kuta, Seminyak and Tanu. And this is not local garbage, this is world garbage. Waste from the world's ocean that at some time meet the Indonesian beaches. In recent times, huge efforts have been made to reduce plastic. At the shops, for example, you just can't buy plastic bags, they are banned, but this is still not enough. And if the local people don't put in more effort, God's Island can become a trash island. After telling you all these bad things about Bali, we need to tell you that it is still a very frequent pick from a lot of tourist holidays because of its amazing culture and wild, beautiful nature. It is one amazing place, and it is always worth to be seen. We made this video for you just to be more prepared before going there, and to escape the disappointment of Instagram versus reality moment. If you like the video and want to see more similar content like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. See you soon.